I'm getting an echo. And I know what will resume them. Convene the Minnesota County Board of Supervisors at 9:03. Alice, would you conduct the roll call?
Sure thing. Supervisor McGordy?
Here.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Here.
Supervisor Hashak?
Here.
Chair Jurdy?
Here.
And Supervisor Williams?
Here.
Okay, we're gonna, next on our agenda is Pledge Allegiance. I'll lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next on our agenda is public expression. Do we have any members of the public who wish to comment on items that are not on today's agenda?
Jude, you can go ahead and begin speaking when you're ready.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Jude Tillman. I'm speaking today. Let me get rid of this echo. Okay, I'm speaking today on behalf of the Mendocino Cannabis Alliance. We are glad to be able to support the continued efforts of the county cannabis program to streamline and effectuate our phase 1 and other cultivators and operators seeking legal status. First, a few general recommendations before sharing this week's report for our members of issues that have come up. First of all, we urge you to extend the portal closing date to give time to applicants caught in various quagmires to work with the county to secure their permits. Second, we request that you fully resource the county's cannabis program. We know there's state money available for local jurisdictions to hire staff to facilitate permitting and check regulatory compliance. Third, many of the problems our phase 1 cultivators are facing could be addressed by a standing supervisors committee on cannabis. We urge you to reconsider forming a standing cannabis committee. Here are the recent issues reported to MCA. Various items have been dinged on the portal resubmission checklist for different applicants. For example, number 1, after a valid SIUR was submitted, the staff responded that it, quote, must include at least an SIUR notice of receipt, unquote. If the applicant has a validated SIUR, why do they need a notice of receipt? Next, regarding an air quality management district questionnaire, the reviewer said, quote, water pump question unanswered, end quote. How's that relevant to an air quality questionnaire? But the resubmission was bounced. Next, a sensitive species habitat questionnaire was submitted, and the response was, quote, missing permit for grading or tree removal, end quote, neither of which occurred. Another rejected portal submission. The county informed an applicant that the NOA they used was outdated. The applicant checked with the Regional Water Quality Control Board and received an email saying, no, the NOA was correct and up to date. This delayed the application and took it out of the queue. Next, beginning in 2019, an applicant provided all requirements, LSA, NOA, water board reports, et cetera, et cetera. After submission of these requested documents, the staff person they were working with never got back to them. They apparently left the department, and the applicant is still in limbo with no response from the cannabis program. Another person, after working with the planning department for 2 years, providing every bit of information they requested, saw that on the new portal, their permit was not listed. After they inquired what happened to it, they were informed that it was their fault because they hadn't updated their contact information. And now they had 30 days to go through the renewal process. In fact, their contact information had never changed. They'd been receiving tax letters and other renewal letters from the county on time. Now they're tossed back to the beginning of the queue. I have a couple others, but I'm running out of time, so we'll save them for next time. Thank you very much kindly for listening to our testimony.
That concludes public expression.
Great, thank you. Next on our agenda is item 3A, which is discussion and possible action, including adoption of resolution ratifying the declaration of a local emergency related to the Hopkins fire as proclaimed by the Chief Executive Officer, Director of Emergency Services, and ratifying the existence of a local health emergency as proclaimed by the Health Officer. Sponsors are Executive Office and the Public Health Department.
Yeah. Darcy Antle, Assistant CEO, through the chair. The Hopkins fire started on Sunday, September 12th, approximately 2:15 p.m., quickly grew to over 270 acres. Assistant OES Director Sheriff Kendall activated the EOC at approximately 3 p.m. Animal and human shelters were opened by Social Services Kelsey Rivera. The call center stood ready to activate. On September 16th, OES Coordinator Brent Blazer filed a proclamation with Cal OES declaring the emergency. The Prevention, Recovery, Resiliency, and Mitigation team is actively working on this event. I would like to turn this over now to Travis Kilmore, the PERM Field Coordinator, for a brief update on what recovery is doing.
Hi, Board of Supervisors. Travis Kilmer with the PERM team. I'll just give you a quick update on what we know about the fire so far, the damage, and what our team is doing. So in terms of property damage, there were 33 properties that have sustained damage to structures. That's 67 total structures. 36 were single family residences and 31 were accessory structures. We've gone out and conducted a preliminary damage assessment on 29 of those affected parcels so far. That initial assessment uncovered 28 destroyed vehicles, 7 destroyed trailers, and 3 destroyed boats. Those numbers will probably go up once we get access to the remaining properties and when we get the official DINS report. The preliminary damage assessment that we have has been submitted to Cal OES and it's awaiting approval. In terms of infrastructure damage, Calpella Community Water District did lose a booster station that serves the Marina Estate subdivision. They have a temporary pump in place and they're working on a replacement that's more permanent. There was also a little bit of structural damage to a private roadway, which was Rubicon Court, but that's not a county road. In terms of recovery, PERM has set up a web page for the Hopkins fire, which we've been updating daily with new information regarding the fire. So we have fire updates on there. Right now it has repopulation information, lists of local resources for fire survivors, such as direct assistance available through some of the local nonprofits, mental health assistance, our disaster recovery hotline. We have the number for that up there. We also have some guidance from planning and building services on cleanup and recovery process. And we have some other just additional safety and hazard information. And so far, the DR hotline has received 27 calls from affected residents. And we're using that information to set up a database in conjunction with some of the property files that planning and building has, maps of information. We've used those to come up with the numbers that I shared with you earlier. In terms of next steps, PERM is coordinating with our local nonprofit partners in the VOAD to organize a one-day local assistance center. We don't have a date or a location for that yet, but we are working on it. We're also looking into doing a watershed assessment for the Russian River tributaries and Lake Mendocino, because we're a little concerned about erosion, because a lot of the affected properties were right on the water. We also want to conduct some additional outreach to seniors and Spanish-speaking survivors who may have limited access to our website or need translation of some of the things that we've been sharing. We're also working to coordinate with CHP to deal with some of the destroyed vehicles, trailers, and boats. We have collected as many plate numbers and VINs as we could get when we did our assessment in the field, but we'll need to go back and do a little bit more on that. And finally, we are coordinating with the DA's office and North Coast Opportunities to try and manage and help disperse some victims assistance funds that the DA has available. And I think that's about it for my little update.
Okay, thanks, Travis. Supervisor Hashak?
Thank you, Chair Jurdy. Thank you, Travis, for your work on this. You know, what if a person doesn't have internet access? What is the phone number that they should call?
The phone number for the DR hotline is 707-234-6303.
Okay, thank you, because I think some people who might be displaced don't have computer, you know, and so all they need is a phone number to call, and that's helpful. So
Yes.
thank you. Thank you for your work on this.
Supervisor McGorty?
Travis, do we have a list of all the people who've been affected, all the property owners?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Travis. So you mentioned Rubicon Court, which is a private road. When the county looks for federal assistance from FEMA or any other source, do you expect that there'll be funds available for a private road that gets damaged from an event like this, or do you expect that the funds would be limited to public roads?
I believe it would be limited to public roads. I did reach out to Howard DeShiel about this, and he said that it would be on the road association or the homeowners to deal with that road.
Okay, so as far as you know at this time, there may not be federal funds or state funds to repair a private road.
That's correct. As far as I know, there may not be.
Okay, thanks. And then you also mentioned the Capel Water District lost a booster station. That being a public infrastructure, are you thinking there might be some assistance from the state or federal government with this disaster declaration to help with the replacement of that?
Yes, I believe that there would be. And actually, Darcy and I and Brent from OES are actually going to be meeting tomorrow with Cal OES. And we've invited Jared Walker, who is in charge of the water district, to that meeting so we can discuss.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor McGorty?
On that subject, is the water deemed safe for the remaining residences at this point, or what is the situation?
As far as I know, the water is fine. It's safe to drink. It's just that pumping station that they lost.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions at this time? So I'm looking to you, Travis, or to Darcy Handel. Is there any additional presentation for this agenda item?
Darcy Antle, Assistant CEO through the chair. That concludes our report.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay. And I do see Dr. Korn here. I just wanted to confirm that does he have anything else he'd like to add to the presentation?
Hello, I'm sorry. I missed what you had asked.
I was just checking with you to see if there was anything else you'd like to add to the report.
You know, I'm sorry, I wasn't alerted that I was required on this meeting. I'm not prepared for it. I really apologize. And I just tuned in, so I don't know what the report was. I just got in when Darcy Antle was ending her presentation.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Are there any questions that?
So Dr. Corin, there is. No, I was just going to say to Dr. Corin that you have a declaration of a public health. I can't pull it up. So anyway, there's concerns about secondary effects of the fire on local populations through air and water, smoke, and and the aftermath of the fire being in our principal drinking watershed, I think is a concern, and I'm sure we'll be trying to, as a county, mitigate those, prevent erosion and movement of debris and other things into our waterways, which is really obviously prudent.
Yeah. I don't have anything more to say than that. It is, clearly a threat, and we should respond to it, as I said, so, as completely as we can to make sure our waterways are clear. And I don't think there's much more we can do for the air, but we should be aware that it certainly makes people with pre-existing lung conditions more susceptible to problems, and that would exacerbate our current epidemic with the COVID virus. But yeah, that's the only addition that I would make.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Corin. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item?
No, we do not. And we do
Okay.
have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, go ahead. So let's have roll call.
Supervisor McGorty,
Yes.
Supervisor Hashak,
Yes.
Chair Jurdy,
Yes.
Supervisor Mulhern,
Yes.
and Supervisor Williams.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for the response to the fire and rebuilding efforts. Okay, so now we're on to item 3B, which is a discussion possible adoption of an urgency ordinance authorizing an administrative permit program for the temporary use and occupancy of trailer coaches for use as a shelter following the Hopkins fire for affected properties within the footprint area of the Hopkins fire. Sponsor is Planning and Building Services.
Thank you, Chair Jurdy. Good morning, Supervisor, CEO Angelo, and Council Curtis. Julia Krog, Assistant Director of Planning and Building. For today's agenda, staff has prepared an urgency ordinance for your consideration that creates an administrative permit program that allows the installation, use, and temporary occupancy of a trailer coach for up to a 3-year period following the Hopkins fire. The result of the proposed ordinance will be a sunset date of September 21st, 2024 for all administrative permits. This ordinance provides for the same program that the board approved for victims of the Redwood Valley, August Complex, and Oak fires. The ordinance would allow for the temporary use and occupancy of trailer coaches for use as shelter and builds upon the existing county code provisions, which only allow for such use of trailer coaches after a building permit is issued for a residence on the parcel. The proposed ordinance would also allow trailer coaches to be used by licensed contractors hired to construct a replacement dwelling unit and associated structures. The number of trailer coaches that may be placed on a parcel is limited to the allowable density of dwelling units for the parcel pursuant to the inland zoning code +1, less any inhabited dwelling units on the parcel. The ordinance provides that properties need to meet certain health and safety related requirements prior to issuance of an administrative permit, which includes environmental health review for water and septic availability. That concludes my presentation, and of course, I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you very much. One of the conversations that came up during the discussion of the 2017 fires and the distribution of the PG&E funds was around the expense to county staff for, I believe, these types of permits. So can you talk a little bit about how much it might cost an individual to place such a trailer on their property, and if there are any ways that that may be potentially mitigated if they don't have the funds available?
I'll do my best to address that. So Julia Krog, Assistant Director. So it would be challenging for me to give an exact dollar amount for what it would take for somebody to place a trailer on their property, as it can be dependent upon what they have that did not get affected by the fire. So for instance, say your septic was destroyed in the fire, you may need to come up with an alternative in terms of having a travel trailer on the property, or similarly, if you had a well that was damaged. But in terms of the Planning and Building Office, we are proposing that these administrative permits would be free of charge. And so in the agenda summary for this item, we calculated that it would be approximately $33,000 that the department would be essentially waiving for those administrative permit fees. Now, that was based on initial damage assessments, and that may change depending on what the final damage assessments are. And that's based off the number of residences. So I'm sorry, I don't think I'm going to be able to give you an exact dollar amount, but I'm available for any additional questions.
Thank you. Maybe, excuse me, Mr. Chair, maybe Darcy or somebody from the perm team could discuss if they would potentially be seeking reimbursement for that 33,000 that we wouldn't be charging.
Through the chair, Darcy Antle, Assistant CEO. We could attempt to recoup it, but that typically has not been an item that's reimbursable by the state or by FEMA or through an FMAG. And FMAG is a fire mitigation, a grant that we could apply for if we don't get declared a state or federal disaster.
Supervisor McGordy.
Darcy, what is the process at this point going forward? We have the declarations in place. So what is the next action going to be on your part? Rest of disaster.
Darcy Antle, Assistant CEO, through the chair. So as Travis Kilmore mentioned, we will be meeting with Cal OES, I believe it's tomorrow morning at 8:30, to discuss the magnitude of this disaster. Certainly we will emphasize the impact to our waterways and our concern over the watershed. We will also mention that in the last 12 months, this county has gone through 5 disasters, and we are still suffering in 3, being the COVID-19, the drought, and now this fire. So we were hoping with these compounding disasters to be able to get state and federal assistance, but we need the state to advocate on our behalf, and we will do that through Cal OES.
Okay, thank you. And just Darcy, just for a recap, my understanding is in general, the way activities that are eligible for reimbursement from Cal OES or FEMA would be for expenses that the county incurs that are either because we've hired extra help employees, I guess extra employees, or overtime, but generally the county is not reimbursed for any staff time that's not overtime or extra help. Is that true?
Darcy Antle, Assistant CEO. Yes, Chair Jurdy, that is true. We are only, anybody that works maybe perhaps outside of their scope we could receive reimbursement for, but typically we are all, as county employees, disaster service workers. And so at that tune, they only cover our overtime. They will cover some response as far as driving for our sheriff as they are commuting and patrolling the area. And again, overtime for the rest. Management and above is not reimbursed. And we would have to get a federal declaration in order for individual assistance to kick in. So at this point, as Travis mentioned, we are working actively with our nonprofit partners in the community. Again, NCO is North Coast Opportunities is putting out urgent grants. I think they're around $5,000 for immediate need. Also, we learned this week, I don't have all the specific details, there is a fund through the DA's office for victim witness, and we are looking into how to distribute those funds, having the DA's office work with North Coast Opportunities and their case managers to line that up. And everyone that was impacted by the fire does qualify for these victim witness funds through the DA's office.
All right, thank you. Supervisor McGorty, do you have your hand raised?
Sorry, I didn't put it down after the last question.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay. Supervisor Hashek?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear about, there's a lot of people who have immediate needs, and this will certainly help them in the long run of putting the trailer on their property again. But in the meantime, people who don't have those resources need to get in contact with NCO or American Red Cross or the DR hotline number. The 234-6303, because there's immediate needs out there that need to be addressed.
Okay, thanks for that information. All right, can we have a roll call?
Supervisor Mulhern,
Yes.
Supervisor Williams,
Yes.
Chair Jurdy,
Yes.
Supervisor McGorty,
Yes.
and Supervisor Hashak.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
All right, well, that appears to conclude our action for this special meeting. Just looking to the clerk of the board's office, was there any other items that staff had intended to bring forward?
No, there are not.
Okay, all right. So at 9:28, we are adjourned.